You saw it, didn't you? I gave all the right answers. Wasn't it wonderful? I could have been an actress, don't you think so?
Julie Christie was once the Queen of Hollywood, a star who ruled the screen in Doctor Zhivago and Darling. Then she vanished for years. No one knew where she was or what she was doing. On July 23, 2024, after 8 long years, she stepped out in East London, and the world barely recognized her. At 84, with her silver-gray hair and natural look, she's proof that fame doesn't define everyone. Her journey from glamorous icon to private activist, from secret weddings to shocking public decisions, is unlike anything you've heard before. Let's dive into the complete story. Julie Christie's life began in an unusual and fascinating way. She was born on April 14, 1941, at the Singlijan Tea Estate in Chabwa, Assam, during the British colonial era. Her father, Frank St. John Christie, was a tea estate foreman deeply tied to the traditions of British colonial life. But there was a secret in her family. Julie had a half-sister, June Christie, born from her father's relationship with an Indian tea picker. This mixed-race relationship was a taboo during that time and was kept quiet for years. Julie's early life in Assam was shaped by this hidden family history and the complex dynamics of British colonialism. Julie's father represented the rigid structure of the British Empire, while her mother, Rosemary Ramsden, was a Welsh painter who brought a touch of artistry and creativity to their lives. This contrast between her parents left a lasting impression on Julie. At the age of 6, Julie's life took a dramatic turn. She was sent to England to attend a Catholic convent school, a place far removed from her free-spirited early years in Assam. The strict environment clashed with her personality, and her rebellious nature came through when she told a risque joke, leading to her expulsion. Being separated from her parents at such a young age deeply affected Julie. While she stayed with a foster mother in England, her parents remained in India. This sense of abandonment stayed with her, shaping her views on relationships and her resistance to traditional marriage. She described this time as challenging and lonely, and these feelings would later influence the roles she chose as an actress, often playing characters who were independent yet emotionally complex. When Julie was 7, she permanently moved to England, leaving behind her life in India. This marked a clear break from her roots, but Assam always held a special place in her heart. At just 16 years old, Christie made a life-changing decision. After a rebellious childhood marked by getting expelled from several convent schools, she set off to Paris in 1957. Living independently in the City of Lights, she pursued her passion for art, immersing herself in French culture and the vibrant art scene. This time in Paris shaped her deeply. It gave her a sense of sophistication and a worldly edge. When she returned to England, Christie didn't slow down. She enrolled at the Central School of Speech and Drama in London, a prestigious institution for aspiring performers. Here, she honed her craft, delivering standout performances that caught attention. One of her most memorable roles during this time was as the Dauphin in George Bernard Shaw's St. Joan. Her acting style was different, natural and modern, in contrast to the dramatic and theatrical styles that were typical in British cinema back then. Her teachers saw something special, a fresh, casual approach that made her performances feel authentic and alive. The rigorous training at the Central School was pivotal. It was here that she developed the unflappable stage presence that would later define her screen career. Her contemporaries noted a compelling contradiction in her personality, an innate shyness coupled with a formidable confidence when performing. She wasn't interested in the affected glamour of many aspiring stars. Her focus was on the truth of the performance. This commitment to authenticity was what initially alienated her from the rigid British theatre establishment. but later made her the perfect face for the radical new wave of 1960s cinema. She wasn't an actress playing a part. She was a presence inhabiting a character. This early artistic integrity would become the template for her entire life, dictating her professional choices and her eventual rejection of fame. By 1961, Christie landed her first big television role in the BBC science fiction series A for Andromeda. She was cast after being described as the new Bardot, a comparison that hinted at her charm and screen presence. The director, Michael Hayes, wanted her performance to be subtle, letting the camera tell much of the story. Even though the BBC was advised to sign her to a long-term contract, they didn't. As a result, they had to recast her role in the sequel, The Andromeda Breakthrough. Today, only one episode of this groundbreaking series survives, along with a few brief clips, but it marked the start of Christie's journey to stardom. Her brief tenure on A for Andromeda demonstrated an early lack of interest in long-term contracts and the predictable path to celebrity. She was already instinctively guarding her freedom. This resistance to being tied down became a hallmark of her professional life. Her early film career began in 1962 with small roles in British comedies. She appeared in Crooks Anonymous and The Fast Lady, both directed by Ken Anakin. These films weren't groundbreaking, and her roles were simple girlfriend parts opposite established actors like Leslie Phillips and Stanley Baxter. While they didn't bring critical acclaim, these experiences gave Christie valuable screen time and taught her the technical side of acting in films. These light roles were a stepping stone, preparing her for the heavier dramatic weight of her breakout role. Everything changed in 1963 with Billy Liar. Her role as Liz became an iconic moment in British cinema. Her character's entrance, carefree and swinging down a street in London, captured the spirit of the 1960s and became unforgettable. Critics were mesmerized. The Times wrote that Christie had that rare quality of obliterating everything else from the screen whenever she moves across. Liz was a free spirit who went wherever life took her, a perfect reflection of the emerging, rebellious era. Interestingly, the role was meant for another actress, Topsy Jane, who had to drop out due to illness. This twist of fate brought Christie into the spotlight, launching her career and making her one of the defining faces of 1960s cinema. Christie's performance in Billy Liar was not merely successful, it was zeitgeist-defining. She embodied the swinging London movement before it had fully roared. Liz was the antithesis of the prim, post-war British woman. She was independent, sexually aware, and utterly modern. Her look, the long, straight hair, the simple, chic clothes, immediately inspired a generation of young women. Director John Schlesinger recognized that Christie's naturalistic charm was the antidote to the mannered acting of the previous generation. She didn't have to act rebellious. She was the rebellion. This ability to instinctively channel the cultural moment was what made Hollywood take notice. At 24 years old, Julie Christie shocked Hollywood with her role in Darling. The film had bold ideas about love and freedom, which made many people think it was too risky to win. Most expected Julie Andrews to take the Oscar for The Sound of Music. When asked about her chances, Christie laughed and said, "Good God, no." But on April 5, 1966, she surprised everyone by winning the Oscar for Best Actress. Even more surprising was what she wore, a gold pantsuit she had made herself. She became the first woman to accept an Oscar in pants, breaking Hollywood's strict rules about fashion. Darling won 3 Oscars, including Best Screenplay and Best Costume Design. The win for Darling was a seismic event. It wasn't just a validation of Christie's talent, but a victory for the burgeoning new wave cinema over the traditional Hollywood musical spectacle. Her character, Diana Scott, was a beautiful, amoral model who navigated the social and sexual revolution with a careless grace. It was a challenging, unheroic role, yet Christie made her captivating. Her choice of the pantsuit for the acceptance speech was a powerful, silent declaration of her nonconformity. She was rejecting the traditional image of the Hollywood starlet, signaling that her celebrity would be on her own terms, free from the industry's suffocating expectations of feminine glamour. What made Christie's win even more amazing was that she worked on Darling and Doctor Zhivago at the same time, often putting in 18-hour days. Her work in Doctor Zhivago was unforgettable. The movie became one of the most successful films of all time. Christie played Lara Antipova, and her chemistry with co-star Omar Sharif was so strong that some scenes had to be toned down because they were too passionate for 1965 audiences. The film won 5 Oscars and was nominated for 5 more. But filming wasn't easy. The Soviet Union had banned the novel, so they couldn't film there. Instead, the snowy scenes were recreated in other places. Christie's performance was so captivating that one writer joked she seemed more like a modern woman from London than someone living in old Russia. Dr. Zhivago transformed Christie from an art house darling into a global blockbuster icon. The dichotomy of her working on both films simultaneously speaks volumes about her range, from the intimate, cynical modern drama of Darling to the sweeping, epic romance of Dr. Zhivago. Her portrayal of Lara was deeply romantic, yet infused with a quiet stoicism that resonated with millions. The intense filming conditions, which involved recreating a Russian winter in a blistering Spanish summer, tested her endurance but solidified her reputation as a formidable talent. By the end of 1965, Julie Christie was everywhere. Time magazine called it the Year of Julie Christie and put her on the cover. They said she wasn't just a star, she was a new kind of actress. Christie didn't act like a traditional Hollywood goddess. Instead, she was natural, down-to-earth, and full of energy. That year, she appeared in 3 major movies: Darling, Doctor Zhivago, and Young Cassidy. People loved her fresh, modern style. Christie also changed fashion. She didn't follow the usual Hollywood trends. Instead, she created her own look. She often shopped at small stores like Biba, and even picked her own costumes for Darling. She made headlines when she attended the Melbourne Gold Cup without wearing a hat, gloves, or stockings, things women were expected to wear at the time. Her simple style, like headscarves and knee socks, became the look of 1960s London. But Christie never felt like a fashion icon. She once said, "I never thought I was dressed right." Her accidental status as a fashion pioneer highlights her casual defiance. She wasn't trying to make a statement. She was simply dressing for her own comfort and aesthetic, which happened to perfectly capture the emerging youthful spirit of the decade. This authenticity was magnetic. Meanwhile, Julie Christie and Warren Beatty's story began in 1966 at a glamorous event, the Royal Command performance of Born Free. Beatty was there with his then-girlfriend, Leslie Caron, when he first saw Christie. She stood in the reception line to greet Queen Elizabeth II, and Beatty couldn't take his eyes off her. Determined to meet her, he asked his friend Richard Silbert, who worked on one of Christie's films, to make the introduction. After Christie reached out to him, Beatty flew to San Francisco, where she was filming. Their first meeting didn't go perfectly. It was awkward and tense, but something clicked between them. A few months later, after both had ended their previous relationships, they became a couple. Their first public appearance together was at a preview screening of Bonnie and Clyde in 1967. Their romance wasn't just personal, it extended to their work. The pair starred together in 3 memorable films: McCabe and Mrs. Miller, 1971, Shampoo, 1975, and Heaven Can Wait, 1978. In McCabe and Mrs. Miller, Christie's performance as a brothel madam earned her an Oscar nomination. Beatty later said Christie was the most beautiful person he had ever known, but also one of the most nervous. Their connection went beyond the films they made together. Beatty even wrote a role specifically for her in his movie Reds, 1981. Christie, however, turned it down, believing the role of Louise Bryant should go to an American actress. Even so, Beatty dedicated the film to her with the words "For Jules" in the credits. McCabe and Mrs. Miller, directed by Robert Altman, is considered by many critics to be their finest collaboration. Christie's performance as the hard-headed but vulnerable Mrs. Miller, set against a dreamlike, snow-covered Pacific Northwest, was a powerful statement on the American mythos. It showed that even at the height of her fame, she was drawn to unconventional artistic projects rather than safe, commercial fare. Meeting Beatty changed Christie's career path. She turned down big roles in films like They Shoot Horses, Don't They?, Anne of the Thousand Days, and Nicholas and Alexandra. These were career-defining parts that earned Oscar nominations for other actresses. After completing In Search of Gregory in 1969, Christie stepped away from Hollywood, spending more time with Beatty at their beach house in Malibu. This retreat hurt her career, since being out of the spotlight meant fewer roles, even in artistic films. Christie's feelings about Hollywood grew more negative during her time with Beatty. She once admitted she felt like she was losing herself, saying, "I thought I was going mad. You do fall into Hollywood, you slip into it." Unlike Beatty, who stayed active in the industry, Christie withdrew from Hollywood's social life. Fame made her uncomfortable, and she described it as being treated like a performing dog. Seeing her face on magazine covers made her cringe. This deliberate withdrawal marked the beginning of her decades-long push-pull relationship with the film industry. She had achieved the highest level of stardom, yet it brought her profound unhappiness. The quote about feeling like a performing dog perfectly encapsulates her loathing for the commodification of celebrity. She craved meaning and privacy over flash and publicity. The relationship ended in 1974, mainly because of their different beliefs about commitment. Christie valued monogamy, while Beatty didn't feel tied to that idea as long as they weren't married. Even though they broke up, their friendship remained strong. They worked on 2 more films together and supported each other over the years. In 1977, Julie Christie made a big decision. She walked away from Hollywood while her career was at its peak. She even turned down a huge role in American Gigolo, which would have paired her with John Travolta. Hollywood's glamorous lifestyle no longer appealed to her. She hated the constant attention and red carpet events. Once, she said she couldn't stand the signs at these ceremonies that ordered celebrities to turn around just to show off designer clothes. She wanted something real, not fake. When she moved back to Britain, she didn't choose a fancy neighborhood. Instead, she settled in London's East End, a place far from the glitz, showing her love for a simpler, more authentic life. 2 years later, in 1979, Christie met Duncan Campbell, a journalist who wrote powerful stories exposing injustice. They quickly became partners. For almost 3 decades, they didn't feel the need to marry, but in 2008, they surprised everyone by secretly tying the knot in India. Duncan's dedication to social causes influenced Christie, but she always credited her ex Warren Beatty for sparking her interest in justice during their time together in the 1970s. With Duncan, Christie became even more active in her efforts to make a difference. Christie eventually chose to live in Wales, a place that held special meaning for her. It reminded her of her childhood days with her mother. After her parents split up, she bought a sheep farm in a quiet part of Montgomeryshire and made it her home. This wasn't just a pretty getaway. It was a real working farm. Christie got involved in the day-to-day life there, fully embracing rural living. For her, the farm was more than a home. It was a way to live in harmony with nature, far away from Hollywood's flashy lifestyle. This move to the Welsh farm was the most profound expression of her values. It was a rejection of the superficiality of Hollywood and an embrace of tangible, meaningful work. She became a genuine eco-activist, not just a celebrity figurehead. Her commitment to animal rights, anti-nuclear proliferation, and environmental protection took precedence over any acting role. The farm provided a sanctuary and a grounding reality that fame had stripped away. Christie's love for the environment had been strong since the 1970s. She spoke out about climate change and sustainable living, but she didn't just talk, she lived it. On her Welsh farm, she used eco-friendly methods and tried to leave as little impact on the planet as possible. She also joined protests and campaigns to push for nuclear disarmament. Even the films she chose reflected her values, often focusing on stories that raised awareness about important issues. In 1996, Julie Christie played Gertrude in Kenneth Branagh's bold version of Hamlet. This movie was like no other. It was 4 hours long and stayed true to Shakespeare's original text. This project marked a return to classical acting, showcasing the training she received decades earlier. She brought a modern complexity to a classic queen, portraying Gertrude not as a simple villain, but as a woman caught in impossible political and personal circumstances. In 2004, Christie appeared in Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban as Madame Rosmerta. Her part was small, but it stood out. The director, Alfonso Cuarón, personally asked her to play the role because he believed she would bring something special to the movie's darker tone. Even though she wasn't on screen for long, her performance left a mark. This role was one of the few big franchise films she took in her later career, and she worked closely with Gary Oldman, who admired how much depth she brought to her scenes. Taking a role in a huge commercial franchise like Harry Potter surprised many, but it demonstrated a wry sense of humor and a willingness to work with directors she respected, regardless of the scale of the project. A few years later, in 2006, Christie gave a performance that people still talk about in Away from Her. She played a woman struggling with Alzheimer's disease, and her acting was so honest and moving that it earned her another Oscar nomination, her fourth. But the role almost didn't happen. Director Sarah Polley had to convince Christie to take it, even though she liked the script. Once she agreed, Christie put her heart into it. She spent time with Alzheimer's patients to understand what they go through. Her performance was so true to life that clips from the movie were later used in medical schools to teach about dementia. Christie won a Golden Globe and a SAG Award for this role, proving once again why she was one of the best actresses of her time. Her reluctance to take the role stemmed from her deep-seated ambivalence toward acting. She had to be convinced that the film's message, a compassionate, unromanticized look at aging and memory loss, was important enough to warrant leaving her private life. The resultant performance was hailed as a masterpiece of subtlety. She avoided any theatricality, embodying the quiet, heartbreaking confusion of the disease. This final major artistic triumph confirmed her as an actress of rare intellectual and emotional honesty. Christie's final films were just as thoughtful as the rest of her career. In 2011, she played the grandmother in Red Riding Hood. What could have been a simple fairy tale role became something richer because of her talent. In 2012, she appeared in The Company You Keep with Robert Redford. She played a former activist, and the role seemed to echo her own history of political activism. This film marked the end of her acting journey. Afterward, Christie chose to step away from the spotlight. Julie Christie has always been a master at keeping her personal life private while remaining in the public eye. Unlike many celebrities, she avoided writing an autobiography or giving personal interviews. When she did speak publicly, she focused on political causes rather than her private life. For decades, even her half-sister June's existence was a well-kept secret. After winning an Oscar for Darling in 1965, Christie didn't use her fame to chase the spotlight. Instead, she chose a quieter life in Wales, dedicating herself to environmental and political activism. Her ability to guard her privacy was so effective that her 2008 wedding went unnoticed for months, and her rare public appearances still make headlines. Her life represents a successful, though difficult, negotiation between immense public fame and an absolute demand for private existence. She achieved a level of control over her narrative that few celebrities ever manage. The silence surrounding her marriage was a conscious act of resistance against the media machine. Her reticence was not about being aloof. It was about protecting her inner life and allowing her work, both artistic and activist, to speak for itself. On July 23, 2024, Christie made her first public appearance in 8 years. At 84, she was seen in East London visiting a dry cleaner with her husband, Duncan Campbell. This sighting was significant because Christie had stepped away from Hollywood glamour in the mid-2000s and 2010s, choosing to leave Los Angeles behind for a simpler, quieter life in the UK. This decision reflected the values her mother, Rosemary, had instilled in her: wisdom, frugality, and care for the environment. Even in her later years, those lessons continued to shape her choices. This latest sighting cemented her legacy as the ultimate anti-celebrity. She was performing a mundane, everyday task, not attending a premiere. It was a powerful, unintentional final act for a life spent trying to be ordinary after achieving the extraordinary. Unlike many of her Hollywood peers, Christie has embraced aging naturally. She proudly wears her silver gray hair without hiding it, a clear rejection of Hollywood's obsession with youth and perfection. Her choice is consistent with the way she's challenged beauty standards throughout her career. She once made headlines for accepting an Oscar in pants, defying expectations, and her current appearance continues to celebrate authenticity and individuality. Her choice to age naturally is perhaps her most profound statement on beauty and culture. It is a graceful and unwavering rejection of the pressure that has crippled generations of female stars. It is the final victory of the rebellious spirit that first appeared in Billy Liar, a refusal to conform to any externally imposed standard. She shows that a woman can be an icon of beauty and grace on her own terms, without filters or artifice. Even in casual settings, Christie's sense of style remains impeccable. During her recent outing, she wore a thoughtful outfit that balanced comfort and elegance. Her look included blue khakis, a baby blue button-down shirt, and a vibrant red scarf for a pop of color. She completed the ensemble with white sandals, a blue necklace, tiger print sunglasses, and a practical black lacrosse crossbody bag. The outfit showed how Christie has adapted her signature style to suit her age, while maintaining the grace and sophistication she's known for. Julie Christie's life is a testament to the power of personal choice over professional obligation. She didn't let Hollywood define her, but instead used its platform to champion her true passions. From the tea estates of Assam to the quiet fields of Wales, she remains a luminous enigma, a star who shone brightly, then quietly, purposefully, dimmed the light to live a life of meaning. She is and always has been one of a kind.